I was beginning to learn about and wanted to ask you about the things you see in movies like Gasland, or it was on Fox News as well, people lighting their water on fire from their kitchen sink. Mm-hmm. And apparently some of those incidents were tracked in a 3-year study in Garfield County, which found they essentially did I don't know what you call it, gas forensics, and determined that County in a 3-year study that natural fractures might have been exacerbated by the fracking and opened up new veins to allow the gas to escape to those wells, so that the gas that was being collected with the main might not have had anything to do with it. It might have been the fracking process that created additional fracture routes.
What you're describing there is work by Dr. Jeffrey Thine of the Laramie Energy Institute. Unfortunately, that's a controversial study, as I'm not sure why it should be, but the State Oil and Gas Commission has not accepted that. What the State Oil and Gas Commission is view of why there's so much thermogenic gas from the oil field, gas from the gas field coming to the surface, they conclude, illogically, that it was a single well that had improper casing behind the production tubing. Now that well was sealed, I think, in 2007, and Dr. Jeffrey Thine has found this thermogenic gas continuing as recent as last fall, anyway. So even though it's been sealed for many years, the thermogenic gas keeps coming. So he concludes, as you just summarized correctly, that it could well be what I call a good well going bad. That is, a properly sealed well may create fracture patterns deep below the surface that connect to others. Dr. Tony Ingraffi and I have put forward this as a hypothetical mechanism of why gas can come to the surface from fracking. But Dave Neslin on the Oil and Gas Commission refutes Dr. Ingraffi's view on that point, and we haven't investigated it.
Well, the reason I brought that up is that there are 4 aquifers that sit under the Lowry bombing range, and 2 already have some contamination that was related to the Lowry landfill. And they're planning 4 additional reservoirs. Currently there's Aurora Water Reservoir on site, which is used for recreation too. So with the 4 aquifers, if you have all of these these fracking wells going on, is it possible, or is this science fiction, that it could create new fractures that might lead gas to go into the aquifers, and what would be the impact of that?
Well, it's not science fiction. It needs study. Point out that this kind of mechanism you're describing, where the fracturing event may allow pathways to connect to other existing fractures, was raised by the Hazen and Sawyer report for New York City with respect to very similar circumstances, that is, fracking in deep shales, in the case of New York City, the Marcellus Shale. So this issue has been raised by others, but it hasn't been studied here in Colorado. Let me say this with respect to the reservoirs. What I would consider the most likely risk to Aurora Reservoir is spills. Accidents are going to happen. And we just described, 1,000 or 1,200 trucks per well. So if we have many dozens of wells out there, we've got all that traffic, some of which is carrying undiluted product, some is just carrying water, but a spill of these undiluted toxic products is certainly a risk to the existing reservoir.
And currently there still hasn't been disclosure on the part of industry, so first responders wouldn't know what they're dealing with.
Well, first responders should know in this way, Sonia. The industry is required to post a material safety data sheet whenever it moves this toxic material or stores it. Now that kind of information on there tells a first responder if it's an acid or it's an asphyxiant or it's inflammable. So it gives the first responder instant chemical information with respect to how to handle it for purposes of immediate response. But that's not relevant information for the medical field to understand how these materials, once they volatilize, might affect humans. For that, we need reporting based on chemical abstract numbers, a specific chemical compound that are contained. So these MSDS sheets don't provide it.
Which is a significant issue if there were any kind of accident, for the medical field to know.
What Colorado's done is kind of odd. I mean, they haven't been aggressive on this, and as a result of a specific event where a nurse went down in Durango. A nurse in Durango was treating a patient who came in unconscious from the field, and that man, the patient, had fracking fluids on his clothing, and she performed triage, and a week later the nurse came down with renal failure and other complications of the liver. And as a result, her medical profession called the service company to find out what chemicals she was exposed to, but was denied.
Fine.
And that created at least a reaction in the state legislature and Oil and Gas Commission to require these companies to release the information upon being requested by a medical professional, but not to us, not the public.
But in terms of, I mean, there are so many different efforts to organize the public and medical field and so on, and in response, organize. You can't advance organize if you don't know what you're organizing for,
Right, and you can't, not only that, if you're a landowner out there, you may not know what to test for in your well as a baseline condition because you don't know what the companies are using. I think we'll get over this. I think Secretary Salazar is thinking about moving in that direction for public land at least. This is not public land, but I'm expecting we'll get more and more information. I'd like to see Colorado move in that direction. What Colorado is offering, along with the companies, is merely a voluntary program. It just started this week, where companies can voluntarily post the chemical content. But that's hardly a way to build any trust. Nobody's going to trust voluntary reporting by an industry that's shown it's being irresponsible.
Yeah, we were just talking about the diesel where they were shown.
Yeah, right.
They've been doing that
Exactly.
even though they
Good
said
point.
they weren't going to.
Right.
Yeah.
You're going to trust someone who just lied to you last week?